Okay. So there was an article in the show notes here that is about Walmart is cutting 7,000 jobs due to automation. I hear people being upset about this. They're like, what's going on here? This is not very nice. This is un-American. That people are losing their jobs due to automation. And I only have really like one sort of thread of comments that I really want to talk about with this, and that is you're asking for it. Right? This whole $15 an hour for flipping burgers thing, you don't think that is a causation here? That's saying, I can automate you. There was an article, a study done, that basically said that it was cheaper to buy robots than it was to pay a person $5 a day. Not $5 an hour, $5 a day. You don't think the automation is coming? Right, we've been talking about this for years on this show. Automation is coming because specifically people are asking for too much money.
I think also that's just the direction that things tend to go. Jobs, your base jobs tend to get more skilled. So eventually a base job is going to be perhaps the guy who programs those robots, Yeah. We're going to get to a point where a developer is not considered a skilled job anymore. Right,
because they're automating developing also, right?
Yeah.
As far as coding is concerned, they can just say, well, I want it to look like this, and bang, the AI spits it out instantly.
And that was just Walmart. There's then another link in here that I put in here from San Francisco. The Lowe's stores are going to get a robot starting this fall.
Now, is this the same one that we were talking about before that tells people where stuff is at?
Yeah, cheaper for them to have a robot communicate with people of, oh, you need aisle 13, than paying a guy $15 an hour to stand there and tell people, yeah, you need paint on that aisle.
Right, and there's a whole series of articles that I posted, some of them on Facebook, where these restaurants and other businesses in Seattle, which already passed the $15 an hour minimum wage, and people are like, great, I got $15 an hour, but now I'm unemployed. I don't know, it just bothers me. You're sitting here in this job, you're working it, dedicated, you do a good job, you are very good at what you do, and then just because there's a bunch of people complaining outside because burgers are hard to flip, that they come in with a similar salary to you, even though they don't know anything. They're not very good at their job. They don't have any care or quality. And I guess that's the bigger thing for me, is that when I do things, I do them because I care about them, and I take time to do it right. And I guess there's a work ethic that is missing from, I think, a lot of people. There's this sort of, well, I just deserve $15 an hour because I exist. You don't deserve food because you exist. You deserve to work hard to get paid in order to buy that food, right? And I think that there's a certain amount of, you have to put in the energy. It's like if you give somebody a car, right? Like parents will buy their kids a car sometimes, and the kids will treat that car like crap and destroy it. But the first time that they have to buy their own car, oh, believe me, they take care of it. And I think there's something similar going on. If you want to make that $15 an hour, you need to work towards it.
I think that it's also, the good thing about automating these jobs is that you're going to be pushing people to acquire skills for a job that can't be automated. Or had not yet, anyway.
Well, not yet, because as far as I know,
well, even my
my
job is being automated. So,
or mine too, right? As far as they have AI systems that are protecting networks. They have AI systems that are suggesting repairs and doing what I do for the most part.
That's going to be the new blue collar working class is the developer.
Yeah, I guess the core of my rant really comes from the fact that I hear this argument, which is like, you can't survive on fast food wages. You're not supposed to survive on fast food wages. Like, I had a skill set at the age of 9, which sort of led me to do what I do now, but I still had that job at fast food. I still had that job to learn something about the real world, what it was like to work for someone else. The idea that I was being told what to do, and this is what society was about, and I had to fit in if I wanted to get a paycheck. And so even though I had skills to work, who's going to hire a 9-year-old database developer, a 16-year-old database developer, right? Because that's what I was doing back then. Nobody. And I just happened to get lucky and know the right people and get a decent job at Pima County when I was 17. But before that, right, I was flipping burgers, and I worked at McDonald's and Burger King, right? And I did reason 3 of them because I had to learn how to be an employee. I was a terrible employee. right? Didn't show up on time or whatever, refused to cut my hair. And then suddenly I was just like, oh, I guess this is what being an adult is about. And it just seems very, very childish, this whole thing about, well, just give me what I want so that I can stop protesting in the street. Well, this is what you're going to get. You're going to get automated completely out of relevance.
And, although it's not the emotional standpoint, from a logical perspective for a business, it makes sense to automate. If you can be at 100% efficiency all day, regardless of whether you're using employees or robots to
and
do.
24 hours a day. You don't have to pay them overtime. I've for a long time been a proponent of just no minimum wage. The idea that minimum wage exists in the United States it was called for because there were businesses that owned entire towns, and you didn't have the mobility or the ability to talk outside of your local area or at least know what's going on for a long time in this country, right? So you were getting paid in tokens, right? That you had to spend with the company store, so that there was never any outside money involved.
It was a closed circle.
Right, very closed system. Now, I don't think that exists. Now, there may be some pockets, very small rural areas where that would exist these days, where you could potentially monopolize an entire little town. Is that likely? I think no. I much like with unions, which have served a purpose in many cases or were good for people specifically in those times. I think that they're probably less useful now as far as what their initial intent was about.
Especially now that there are basic laws in place to protect workers anyway.
Right, and a lot of that stuff like minimum wage was the beginning of that. So I think it would be interesting to see a world without minimum wage, because I wouldn't be able to survive paying my employees as a business. I wouldn't be able to survive not paying them enough, right? Because they just leave. Yeah, I just wouldn't be able to say, well, all right, Rob, I'm going to pay you $3 an hour now. And Rob would be like, okay, see you later. I'm out. All right, and there's a certain amount of market forces at play. Now, don't get me wrong. There are, of course, opportunities for abuse. It's going to exist. But I think that if you are artificially manipulating the market, that you're going to have a problem with that. You raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour, and suddenly you have a $12 bottle of milk, right? And I think that there's the other side of that gets forgotten.
The raise of minimum wage is directly correlatable to the cost of living increasing, because small businesses have always been the cornerstone of this country, and as you raise minimum wage, they have to pay their employees more, which means they have to raise their prices. It's an inevitable cycle that leads to...
You're making $15 an hour, and you're just as broke as you were before.
I mean, maybe it helps out for a minute there, but in the long run, it's the same as it always was.
Yeah, you're right. Let's go ahead and take a break. When we come back, more... Hi there, I'm Mike from the Computer Guru Show, and I just wanted to take a moment to explain what this channel is all about. We'll be posting our regular weekly podcasts here in case you like the YouTube format better than our other distribution methods. But we also plan to use this channel for extra bonus content you can't get anywhere else. This will include short videos about tech news, maybe some tutorial videos, and also the off-air podcast we've been planning for a while now, which is where we will discuss tech news and stories in a more laid-back format. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel, share it with your friends, and consider supporting us on Patreon to help us grow. You can find our Patreon at patreon.com/gurushow or by clicking on the link in the description.